Good morning, class. I am Miss Haitin, and I will be your instructor for art appreciation. And today we're going to talk about the lesson 4, which is the subject and content. So for this lesson, we have 4 learning outcomes. First is to differentiate representational art and non-representational art. Second is discuss the difference between an artwork subject and its content. Third is to identify the subject matter and specific examples of art. And lastly is to enumerate the sources of subjects of some of the most recognizable works of art in the Philippine art history. When talking about art, every piece is composed of 3 parts: the subject, form, and the content. The subject is the main focus object in the work of art, whereas the content is the overall meaning of the piece. So now, let's go deeper into the meaning of both these terms in art. In art, the definition of the subject is referring to the main character, object, or anything else that is represented as the main focus in the work of art. The subject can appear in the center of the piece or any other part of it, but is always the most recognizable thing in the entire work of art, regardless of its size. For example, in a photograph of a dog running on the beach, the dog would be the subject because it is the most recognizable component in the picture. In viewing art, there are clues that mediate between the artwork and the viewer, allowing the viewer to more easily comprehend what he is seeing. So these clues are the 3 basic components of a work of art. First is the subject. It is the visual focus or the image that may be extracted from examining the artwork. So it is the what in the art. Second is the content, the meaning that is communicated by the artist or the artwork. It is the why in the art. And the third one is the form, the development and configuration of the artwork, how the elements and the medium or material are pulled together. It is the how in the art. There are 2 types of subject. First is the representational art. These types of art have subjects that refer to objects or events occurring in the real world. It is also termed as the figurative art because the figures depicted are easy to make out and decipher. An example of this is the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. Despite not knowing Mona Lisa is, it is clear that the painting is of a woman that is realistically proportioned. Second type of subject is the non-representational art. It is an art forms that do not make a reference to the real world, whether it is a person, place, thing, or even a particular event. It is stripped down to visual elements such as shapes, lines, and colors that are employed to translate a particular feeling, emotion, and even concept. An example of this is the number 1A by Jackson Pollock. Another example of representational art is The Head of a Woman by Mogens Pablo Picasso. Looking at the combination of lines, shapes, and colors of a sculpture will point to a head of a woman. Even with the abstraction of the image, this work is representational art. So let's move on to the sources and kinds of subject. For the writer, it is often advised to look back and take from what he knows. From there, a well and wealth of materials may be drawn. But for the artist, where do they source the subject of their painting? For non-representational art, a higher level of perceptiveness and insight might be required to fully grasp the feeling, emotion, or concept behind the work. For representational art, it is easier to interfere the subject matter because from the figure depicted in the artwork, there is already a suggestion as to its implication. Artists throughout history have explored diverse ways of representing nature, from plants to animals, the qualities of bodies of water and the terrain of land masses, and even the perceptible cycles and changing of seasons. Often, these depictions are seen as expressions of the sacred by reality or supplemented by the artist's imagination. One artist who was attuned with nature was Vincent van Gogh. He saw art and nature as inseparable, often finding solace and happiness in painting in it and painting from it. In a letter to his brother Theo, he wrote, "If I felt no love for nature and my work, then I would be unhappy." So here are the sources of subject: the nature, history, Greek and Roman mythology, Judeo-Christian tradition, sacred Oriental text, and other works of art. Here are also the kinds of subject: history, still life, animals, nature, landscape, seascape, cityscape, mythology, myth, dreams, and fantasy. So let's move on to the content in art. As outlined in the beginning in discussing works of art, the subject may simply be referred to as the what is readily seen and relates to the artwork, its inspiration, and the many kinds of translation. But apart from what is made explicit, to recognize and grasp the meaning of the artwork, the viewer may sometimes need to go beyond what is visible. Why was the artwork created in the first place? When this question is asked, we are after the meaning or message that is expressed or communicated by the artwork. In understanding the content of art, it is important to note that there are various levels of meaning: the factual, the conventional, and the subjective. Factual pertains to the most rudimentary meaning of it may be extracted from the identifiable or recognizable forms in the artwork and understanding how these elements relate to one another. When we say conventional, these pertain to the acknowledged interpretation of the artwork using motifs, signs, and symbols as basis of its meaning. When subjectives are consulted, a variety of meanings may arise when a particular work of art is read. These meanings stem from the viewer's or audience's circumstances that come into play when engaging with art. Meaning may not be singular, rather multiple and varied. I have here an example painting. Can you give the subject, the factual meaning, and the conventional meaning, and also the subject meaning of it? You're right. The subject of it is the biblical art. The factual meaning is the creation story. The conventional meaning is a man was created in the image and likeness of God, and the subjective meaning is the endowment of intellect to man from God. For your assignment, make a painting using a coffee powder. That's all for this morning. Thank you and goodbye.